monumentous and historic day for the city of Flint, and to welcome everyone and to announce the big news of the day, which I'm sure you can all guess. Wayne Workman from the Department of Treasury.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you all coming. I was just telling some of the city officials it's a lot easier to come somewhere to tell them you're taking the emergency manager out than it is to go and tell them you're putting one in, and I've done both. So this is a happy day for the governor and for the people at the Department of Treasury. And it's a great day for the city of Flint, everybody, because it's one of those where everybody is sacrificed, from every taxpayer and citizen up through the city employees, the retirees, the people that are working in City Hall, that run city government. It's been tough, and I'm happy to say that, you know, today's the last day of the emergency manager. Yesterday, Jerry Ambrose sent a letter to Governor Snyder and recommended that the financial emergency was over, and recommending that he be terminated as the emergency manager. And today, about an hour ago, the governor accepted that recommendation, is terminating Jerry's services, and appointed an RTAB to provide an advisory role for the city going forward. So we're very pleased about that. I mean, as you all know, a great deal has been accomplished. When the first EM got here in 2011, and I think, Jerry, you were there then, not as EM, but in a finance capacity, the city had a deficit in the water fund and the general fund that was approaching $30 million. You know, clearly unsustainable. Those deficits are gone. The budgets are balanced, and a lot of other good things have been accomplished. So I think everybody should feel good in this city about how far you've come and what the future looks like. You know, the finances are still tight. There's still, you know, some cuts will have to be found as you go forward, but things are balanced, and the deficit is gone. There's one cloud, and that is that there's a federal lawsuit from the retirees about health care. And that will play out probably, potentially, for years. If the city prevails, then this plan moves ahead. If the city doesn't prevail, it could cost the general fund $5 to $6 million per year, every year going forward. So there is a serious cloud on the horizon. But generally, the future is good. That the city's got something very good to look forward to. The governor's appointed this receivership transition advisory board, and I'd like to announce who's going to be serving on that. The chair will be Fred Hedden, who is the legal advisor to the State Treasurer, and most of the folks up here have known Fred for many years. He's been active in Flint municipal affairs from the Treasury Department for at least 20 years. And so I think that he's a guy that they'll be able to work with and have a trusting, positive relationship with. Also being appointed is Brian Larkin, who is a director at the Flint Genesee Chamber of Commerce. David McGee is an officer at the Skillman Foundation. Dr. Robert McMahon, president of Kettering University, and Dr. Beverly Walker Griffia, president of Mott Community College. And my one comment about that group of people is this is by far one of the best receivership advisory boards we've seen in the state. It's really good, dedicated, smart people, good thinkers that will be, I think, a healthy addition to help and guide the city. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jerry Ambrose.
Thank you, Wayne. For many of you who have listened to our most recent discussion about the two-year plan and our five-year projections, you know that in comparison to where the city has been over the last 3.5 years, things are much more stable. For the first time in more than a decade, come July 1, there will be no deficits in any city funds. There are new policies and procedures in place that will, if adhered to, will move the city toward achieving and maintaining financial solvency, and put it in a position where, with the commitment of the mayor, the council, the city administrator, this city government, in fact, can become a leader that works in making the city of Flint a great place to live, work, study, and play. The last 3.5 years have been tough. There's no question about that, and Mr. Workman related to that. Taxes have been raised, services slashed, employee compensation reduced, even retirees now paying for health care. But all that was necessary to bring the city finances under control. They're under control. For the next couple of years, we see things as relatively stable, and that means for the upcoming budget for FY16, we did not have to announce further reductions that were unplanned or necessary because of revenue loss. And then we expect the same to be for 17. I do want to say, and then going forward, there are other challenges. As any city has, particularly as any urban core that has suffered significant population loss, property tax loss, there are challenges going forward, but they are doable with the commitment of the mayor, the council, the city administration. I do want to thank all of the employees and all of the management staff who have basically, I would say, not only stuck with it through some very hard times, but have really come up with ideas and have devoted themselves to doing what you must do to keep this city going within the resources that it has. It's been a very great pleasure to work with everyone, and I hope to look back in 5 years and see the city of Flint continuing to be financially stable and becoming not a place that's on the #1 list of undesirable things, but a #1 place to study, work, live, and play. Thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you, Jerry, and good afternoon, everyone. This is a landmark day for Flint. A heavy burden is being lifted from our community with the elimination of the deficit and the end of the financial emergency. I believe with all my heart that Flint is ready for this change. I also thank everyone who has stood by us and stayed with us through this difficult recovery and receivership. The challenges we have faced historically have been massive. But today, it's time to start looking to the future. With a balanced budget in place, it's time to focus on community priorities while continuing to maintain fiscal discipline. Today, we take responsibility for moving Flint forward, for working together, and for solving problems. We can't go back to fighting old battles or settling old scores. We have another chance, and this is our time. A lot was done in the past few days to knock out the financial emergency, and now there are dozens of community issues that we must address to secure Flint's future. We need clean water without another violation notice. We must improve our water customer service and infrastructure. We're focusing on police and community relations and building respect and trust to ensure safety. We need to continue to remove blight, clean up our neighborhoods. We have to address the disparity between our young and young adults, the opportunities that they have in this city, especially in North Flint. And all of this and more will need to get done as we rebuild our community as a healthy, safe, and sustainable 21st century city. So in the coming weeks, we'll continue to work hard every single day. Tomorrow, I'll be meeting with the City Council President, with the community. We're promoting health at the Flint Farmers Market with the end of the Mayor's Wellness Challenge with April 30th and the end of the month. On Friday, we're kicking off officially the Love Your City Month, being May 1st. We're showing everyone how to get involved in tackling blight. The unlimited large item collection actually starts on Monday, so we're asking everyone to be a part of that. And there are more positive announcements coming next week as we keep the momentum going and shift to more positive announcements are coming next week as we keep the momentum going and shift to sustainability and growing our community. As has been mentioned with the comprehensive plan, the strategic plan, the capital improvement plan, all being in place along with fiscal responsibility ordinances, multi-year financial plan, we have a solid foundation in place now. And there will be high expectations for every city department, and we need to see results every single day. Going forward, the City of Flint will also be transparent with information being made available to the public on the new website. By being in control of our own destiny, we can fulfill the amazing potential of our great city of Flint. We have hardworking people, students with new ideas, businesses that are filled with innovation, and leaders who are ready to work together. There's a role for everyone in Flint's rebirth as a 21st century city. I pledge to do everything within my power to work with City Council, the entire community, to make Flint into a city of opportunity and prosperity once again as we open this next chapter for the City of Flint. And with that, I'd like to introduce my friend and partner, our past City Council President, who's here on behalf of our current City Council President, Josh Freeman, who wasn't able to be here, Councilman Kincaid.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all for being here today. This is absolutely a great day for our community, and on behalf of myself, Council President Freeman, and the rest of the City Council, this vehicle city will not go in reverse. We will not back up to the way our financial conditions were in the past. We will continue to move this city forward. And I wish Jerry was here, because Jerry and I have had a lot of differences. And Jerry has done a tremendous job for this community under very difficult circumstances. But we've kept very professional in moving. What really needs to be done is move this city forward by getting a 2-year budget put in place, a 5-year projection of our revenue, and to not agree on all the cuts, but look at the necessary cuts that needed to happen for our city so that we could be here today to make this happen. I wish this would have been sooner, as we all do. Now we can get back to home rule. We can start focusing back on looking at some of the services that have been reduced, and really start putting our best foot forward to get back at providing those services gradually, because this will be a work in progress as we move forward, as we look at our revenue on a monthly basis. And the RTAP, I think that these names are probably some of the best names that could have been selected to be a part of the RTAP for our community. They have a broad base. They have a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, and they are all committed to our community too. So I think that as we move forward, I think you will see a real partnership with the City Council, the Mayor, the City Administrator, the RTAB, and making sure that we don't go back. That's not to say we're not going to have our differences, because we are going to have our differences. But we need to do it in a positive way, and to make sure that as we make our decisions in the future, that it's in the best interest for the residents of this community, and to continue to try to grow business in our community and to provide jobs in our community. And as the Mayor said, look at the real challenges that we have: getting clean water, consistent clean water, getting back more public safety, and more 911 better services and stuff like that. So I'm really happy for today. I've been here before for announcements like this, and I can tell you that I am very, very committed, as my colleagues, Councilman Nelson and the rest of the city council, not to go back and not to have to go over to the state and try to explain why we don't need an emergency manager. We're here today to tell you we are through with an emergency manager, Mr. Workman, and we will not come back for one. Thank you.
I can also introduce our last speaker. We'll also hear from our city administrator, and as Councilman said very well, this is going to be a working partnership between the board, the city council, myself, the city administrator, and all of our department heads, as well as the community. So with that, we'll hear from our city administrator, Ms. Natasha Henderson.
I'd just like to say I look forward to working with the mayor and council and the RTAB to move forward. There are a lot of opportunities for growth for the city of Flint. And I believe that working together, that we will be able to continue to move forward. It's been a pleasure working with the mayor, council, and staff for the past few months that I've been here. They are very dedicated. There's a very great team in place. And we're even in the process of even recruiting more individuals to the team. So I look forward to working as a team, ensuring fiscal stability, and working with the city to guide that process. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, any questions from anyone, Drew?
Mayor, you mentioned being in control of your destiny gives you a lot of the ability to do a lot of things. Can you touch on a couple of things that you weren't able to do with an emergency manager and what your priorities are now that you have this flexibility or freedom, however you want to?
Well, I mean, one of the differences is that you have 10 elected officials who have a responsibility, a direct and clear responsibility to the voters and citizens of this city. So you'll see in that process a greater responsiveness and sensitivity to the community and to voters. You'll see a faster turnaround with sharing information. There was a certain protocol that was in place under Public Act 436 and the placement of an emergency manager, and that was a different process than what we'll have going forward. So we'll be more directly involved. Decisions will come to us first. Those will come through the city council process. Those meetings will have public comment. So the citizens will be involved every step of the way. Now, some of you who haven't covered this story for as long as some others, the last couple of months, there's been a lot more of that traditional process in the sense of more resolutions going to city council, more engagement with the public. But if you go back 2 years ago when this process started, there were times when there was hardly a city council meeting. If there wasn't anything on the agenda. So as we go forward, that public process will be in place, and the citizens will be involved, and they'll have a lot more opportunities. And that's really why I stress the point that everyone needs to be involved in this rebirth and in this next chapter. There's a certain amount that we have to do at City Hall. We have certain authorities and responsibilities, but we need to hear from the community. And then we need to take the responsibility of responding to those issues and solving those problems.
How much control over the local elected officials will the RTAB have? I mean, will they be able to, if the city council and the mayor approve something, can they just say no?
The RTAB is there to have oversight of, I'll say, primarily the city budget, but also major contracts and employment of like department heads and things like that. So they approve budgets, budget amendments, major contracts, major hires. Otherwise, they're silent. They can veto something, and I'll just tell you, in other communities, if a city council presents an unbalanced budget, it would be vetoed and sent back, saying it's not to the RTAB to devise a solution. It's just to say it's not balanced. You have to present a balanced budget. So it's that kind of oversight. Yes.
Mr. Workman, can you talk about that a little bit with the RTAB? A lot of other cities have gone to this RTAB situation, and They seem 3-4 years, 2-3-4 years later, they still have an RTAB?
It hasn't been that long.
Okay.
The timeframe isn't that long. I think, what, Randy, couple of years max?
E-course is the longest we have, it's about 2 years.
Yeah,
About 2 years.
And I'll say E-course struggles, but they've had 5 city managers in the last 2.5 years. That's a problem, and they're picking their city managers, and they're not working, so, you know, the locals are running it, but they still haven't got it right, you know, when you have that kind of turnover, you gotta kind of look in the mirror and say, should we be doing something different?
Sure. What, when you guys look at it, how does the city get out of having an RTAB?
We have I'll say a checklist, a criteria, and the first time we will sit down with Flint officials is about 1 year from now to start that process. We just did Pontiac, and they've made a lot of progress. So I think we're at a point where we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel for the RTAB. I can't give you a date, but we have a real sense of optimism that they've figured out where they need to go. So, you know, we don't have a hard, fast time frame, but we do have a criteria and a checklist to go through, and the first time will be in a year.
Is it fair to say the RTAB then serves as long as the governor?
Yes, until the RTAB writes to the governor and says, our work is finished, the entire process can be terminated. And that's, I'll say, you know, the EM is a phase and the RTAB is a phase. Our goal is just like with the EMs, is we want to get out of we want to be out of these communities. You know, Randy Byrne is here and he heads the Office of Fiscal Responsibility. His mission is to work himself out of a job. Luckily, he's old enough not to worry about it.
I had a question, I don't know if the mayor wants to answer it, but residents who are struggling and have talked about the hardships they've experienced over certain time frames, what message should they take out of this news today?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, I mean, the city has faced massive challenges, and what we're doing in the 2-year budget was to begin to provide some relief to our citizens and our taxpayers and ratepayers. We're not increasing the water and sewer costs as was previously adopted this time a year ago. We're reducing the water deposit fee for renters by $100. The sanitation fee for homeowners and property owners is going down. So we're doing everything we can within the parameters of fiscal responsibility to provide relief. And we'll continue to look for grants and opportunities with the state and with the federal governments to improve our infrastructure, to increase our service levels. So we're going to continue to work on all of those things. But the main thing for all of our citizens to know, again, is that the citizens are back at the table. So when resolutions are going before City Council, residents will be there. They'll be able to have their voice heard and see their elected officials in front of them, cast their votes for action. And that's a change from where we've been in the last, especially 2 to 3 years. So the citizens are back at the table with the departure of the emergency manager, and the City Council and I, we have to work together through that process, but it's really the citizens who are now going to drive us forward.
What happens to the past orders that were signed by the emergency manager? Do those cease to be in place, or do they continue on?
They continue on, and those can be modified, and I'll use Pontiac again as Pontiac probably had one of the strictest, what's referred to as final orders in terms of parameters under which the city had to operate, and we've already had the RTAB at the city's request greatly modify that to transfer a great deal of authority from the city administrator directly to the elected mayor. And there is more to come on that.
Is there a final order that's
Yes.
Mr. Ambrose has put out?
Jerry's did. Yep, Jerry has just issued a final order that finishes his work today.
Mr. Mayor, How many of those orders do you wanna see changed?
There were a number that were signed yesterday, so I need to go through the list myself. But I mean, the changes that have been made are part of, you know, the city being sustainable going forward. So I'll have to take a look at the list. Many of those decisions were one time, as far as how they affected us at a certain point. There may have been some modifications of those orders that were there already, so I'll have to take a look at the list.
Mr. Kincaid, same question. Are there any orders you wanna see changed to make sure that council has the authority it needs?
Well, I wanna see all the orders go away. And I wanna go through that process, over the next, few years to make sure that they all go away. And I think that's what the real objective is. I mean, these orders are put in place, the RTAP's put in place to review our actions and to make sure that we continue a sustainable course down the road. But our goal, I know the mayor's goal, my goal, will be to have the RTAP go away, to have all the emergency manager orders go away, and to get back to complete home rule as quickly as we can. And I think our actions and our demonstrations, how we react over the next few months, will be able to put in place some opportunity to reduce some of these orders or to modify some of these orders. I think the key thing for our community and for us as elected officials is to make sure that we're monitoring the budget, to make sure that our revenue's coming in, to maintain a fund balance at the end of the year, make sure that we pay our deficit, and to continue with a 5-year financial projection for our community. I think as we do those and we sustain those, I think you'll see a natural graduation of these emergency orders being modified and eventually the RTAP going away. You know, my hope and goal is that within the next 2 years, that the emergency orders are completely gone and the RTAP no longer has a need for our community.
Mr. Workman, can you just touch on the $7 million loan that was granted this morning and what role it played in the governor feeling comfortable enough to let us?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. I'll say the first thing about the $7 million loan, that they are called emergency loans under state law, but in this case, I would not characterize it as an emergency. It was a loan that was likely to happen in Flint. Every place that an EM has exited in Michigan, there has been an emergency loan as the last piece of the puzzle, and it helped eliminate the final part of the general fund deficit and puts, in effect, the general fund's gonna repay a loan to the water fund that puts $7 million almost into the water fund that will improve their cash flow. It doesn't change their revenue and expense numbers, but it improves cash, which is important that they have liquidity in that fund. So in the sense of, I'll say in the emergency manager world, this is a routine transaction, and it's one that is common in the other communities. And the city of Detroit, they got an equivalent under bankruptcy. It's called a debtor in possession financing, and it was generated out in the marketplace, but they also got money as they exited bankruptcy.
Mr. Ambrose coming back in?
I'm not sure, I can't say. Okay. Any other questions for anybody else here? If not, thank you for coming today.